There we go. So welcome to The Real Build. I am your host, Bill Ryman, your broker builder. And today I have a special guest coming from San Luis Obispo, California. That's a lot to say in one word there, but he's an industrial entrepreneur and a family man on a mission to change the perception of the building industry by creating a simple, fun experience for every client where we know and value their dreams and enable them to express them. So, I mean, some great things this guy's doing right now. I mean, he owns 5 businesses. One of them's Ferreira Design-Build, a residential and commercial contracting. He recently was voted best general contractor in his whole area. He also is the owner of Monarch Window, regional window and door supply subcontractor, Studio Prime, which is an architecture and structure engineering firm, Architectural Ironworks, which we're going to get into all these as well, which is a best-in-class steel and window and door manufacturer. He also is part of US-Offsite, which is off-site volumetric builder out of Redding, California, breaking ground and 250K facility, which we're going to talk more about as well. He's total right now. He's got about approximately 100 employees, projected to have 300 by the end of 2020. Dan Ferreira, welcome to The Real Build. How you doing today?
Yeah, and we just got a puppy. So that was the straw that broke the camel's back.
There you go. Yeah, I actually just got a puppy too. But I mean, with all the stuff you're doing, man, I'm super excited to have you on. You're doing a lot out there. You're doing a lot in California. You're doing a lot for the future too, like me and you were just talking about too. So I'm excited to get into that with you. But so thanks for taking your time to come on today.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here, Bill. Thanks.
Yeah. And so what I like to get started with is kind of about your background. So who is Dan Ferreira?
Oh, that's fun. Yeah, that's a good warm-up question. Who are I'm somebody who I love people, and through different happenstance, I ended up at Cal Poly getting a construction management degree a couple of decades ago. And I honestly thought like a lot of people at 18 get into a college career or track, you just do what you do and you don't really think much is going to come of it. And then along the way, I ended up falling in love with the idea of construction management. And rather than go the traditional business track, which is jump into a big commercial company and kind of climb the ladder through, running big jobs and that sort of thing, I really wanted to keep my family in San Luis Obispo, which is pretty quaint. Everybody wants to stay here once they come here. It's very difficult to do. And the positive side of that is that anyone who stays here typically is forced to innovate, to create something of value that can allow them to live, because San Luis Obispo has been ranked, I think, on occasion just behind San Francisco proper as one of the most unaffordable places, just based on income versus cost of living. And so it's a beautiful little area between LA and San Francisco that nobody's supposed to know about. So hope that doesn't get out too far. But we stayed here, and what happened to me was I ended up having a really wonderful experience working for several people, and they taught me a lot of what to do and a lot of what not to do. I saw a lot of things in the building industry that are probably very common. And I got to a point several years in, after being a project manager and different things like that, where I just kind of came to my wife, I remember, and said, if I can't be a part of something in this industry that's redemptive in nature, that's actually making it better, then I think I'd rather just do something else. And so, with a few little kids in a small apartment, we kind of built up the courage and a few bucks and decided, I think in 2008 or 9, that we would go for it, and started remodeling homes on my own. So went from running a multi-million-dollar company as a operations manager to being on the job site swinging a hammer, and loving every minute of it in the early days, but I had the privilege of being operations manager for some larger entities, so I understood the economics and the business side of building a little more than the average guy who starts out swinging a hammer. So I kind of knew where I wanted to get to, and through that process I was able to grow a small one-man band company with a Isuzu Trooper, didn't even own a truck. And I think I saved $10,000 when we struck out on our own. So that was a freaky moment there, by some measurement. And within, I think, 2 years, we had built to $2 million gross sales, no debt, and we just kept charging. And I think I was willing to put in the time. I was willing to work through the night and do whatever it took. But I also had a very high standard of that we should be cash flow positive, and I understood margin. I understood how the actual economics of building and how we could do it well, offer a lot of value. And so that kind of sets the stage for me. And then every time I would encounter something in the building industry that I thought could be done better, I thought, well, could we be the part of that solution? And that's what led us to keep starting more companies, And once you figure out the formula of how to build a team and build a back office setup that functions, it's very easily transferable to the next one, So anybody out there who thinks the first business they started almost killed them, it probably did, but the second one's a lot easier. It's probably like having kids in that way. First one will kill you, the second one's easy.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, well, that's a great perspective too, right there. But you have in the background that you did, obviously, coming from out of college and then getting into the building industry and then learning too. I mean, I always talked about that too. I think every builder I've had on here has had some kind of personal experience where they swung a hammer.
Right.
They learned, and they learned the trade through experience. They didn't just jump into it and say, hey, I'm going to be a builder,
Right.
because there's good money in that. And there's people that do that, and some of them might have some success, but without the actual experience too. But where
Mhm.
you capitalize too is having that economic kind of background too, because not a lot of builders have that, where they can handle the
Yeah.
numbers.
And Cal Poly actually has, one of the nation's top, Cal Poly San Luis Obispo has one of the nation's top colleges, the College of Architecture and Environmental
Mhm.
Design, with a best in class like architecture degree, landscape architecture degree, city regional planning degree. And they have, well, there's more of them now, but 20 years ago, they had one of the few really great construction management degrees, a 4-year degree that was basically like 2 to 3 years of architecture and structural engineering, and then you do about a business minor kind of tucked in there, and then they would kind of have their own coursework that was around means and methods and logistics and project management and stuff like that. So it's a really beautiful hybrid of all those pieces, and it's one of the more practical degrees, and you get to hear from a lot of industry professionals. At the same time, you learn all this great theory, like a lot of things, and then you realize right away that if you actually try to go out and build anything, you don't know what you're doing at all. And so obviously I swung a hammer all through college. And yeah, so I think you have two tracks, and this probably goes in life. Humble yourself and go get the knowledge that you need to get. Go swing a hammer, go sweat it out,
Mhm.
go build the foundation of that you need to have the base you need to be really a real impact in the community, or go into that niche where you can get paid a high salary and just go serve somebody else in that way. And I knew right away after a few years of doing the niche thing where I shuffled paperwork and processed change orders and did the commercial contracting that I didn't want to get stuck there. And so I went back down to the bottom and started again. And I think that's a foreign concept to a lot of people, but it is necessary. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, that's awesome. I love that, man, because it the you do if you getting into the business like you said too, and if you don't have that mentality of you want to serve people but you also want to do it better, and that's the mentality that you had, is you can do it better than who you're working for. There's different ways of going about, because there's so many different contractors, let's face it. I'm sure where you're at too, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
everybody, especially when things get busy and times are good, everybody gets into the business, they want to make a quick
Yeah.
buck, so on. Same with remodels. But that's where you have to stand out. I know with our
Right.
business, a lot of people come to us because we are known for that luxury home. We are that
Mm-hmm.
luxury builder, but I've also implemented more employees too, to where I have a customer service guy that's just strictly doing that. Where a lot of builders are a one-man show, or they just have a
Right.
girl in the office and that's it, doing their paperwork.
And I think that's a tough one these days. At least in California, the more regulation that drops,
Hmm.
Corona was a great example of like the California and the nation. HR got like to take 100 employees and keep them working, compliant, safe, and productive through the middle of Corona, and do that well. You got to build a machine and a culture that can do that. And Corona is just one example. And so, the day of the one man band or the small boutique company I'm not sure, frankly, how to do that well anymore. I don't know how it can be done well anymore or legally, at least in California. I mean, if you meet, I mean, to be to be totally candid, not that there aren't great one-man band builders out there, but I think people are more aware of the risk of not having the right resources now than they
Mm-hmm.
probably were 6 months ago. Your supply chain's got to be secure. The capital and the strength of your company needs to be secure to weather the downside risk. Your purchasing practices and your contracts and everything you do, if it's not solid, it's gonna get shaken when something happens. And the amount of resource, I mean, if you're one man band and you get sick, what happens? You know, if you have one gal in the office and she makes a mistake, what happens? You know,
Mm-hmm.
where's the system and the process of excellence? And I guess one of the fun things about the construction industry is that historically the bar is really low. And so anytime someone like you or me or anyone else starts to produce something of business excellence, we do stand out. And
Mm-hmm.
hopefully we are easily findable to people. Um, so it's one of those industries that there's so much room for improvement that everybody could come and contribute tomorrow. It's a lot of room.
Mm-hmm. You know, I highly agree. And having the right, like you said, having the right structure in place, because there's certain things I'm good at, there's certain things that you're really good at too. And why not spend the most time doing those things? Like
Right,
I specialize with customer sales, so on. I can handle a lot of the stuff with our customers. And I'm a little bit more impatient with on job stuff, but that's where my brother comes in. His
right,
patience is a lot
right.
more, he's a lot more laid back than I am. So you have those pieces in place like you're doing. I mean, you got 100 plus employees, so each one is a
Yeah.
part of your business as well.
Well, we were being interviewed yesterday for a project about $1 million build, which is pretty nice, normal, nice home on the coast here. And I knew we were being compared to someone else in the interview who was a one-man band type operator, very, very talented person with a small staff. And they asked that magic question: who is going to be responsible for my project? And I've tried to answer as clearly as I can. I'm like, our entire team is responsible, but I have to go into this education process with the client of, you don't want, I said, you actually get a job site supervisor, a project manager, and what we call project coordinator, interior designer. So you get 3 people committed to the execution of your project, but then you have an accounts team that's running all of the APAR for your project. And at first they're thinking like, well, why can't I just talk to one person? And I said, the guy who runs your job site with 30 years of construction trade knowledge, he uses a computer with his thumbs. Do you really want him being in charge of your bills?
Mm-hmm.
No. Take it further. He's fantastic, amazing quality control guy because of decades of experience. Do you really want him trying to build out a Gantt chart with 500 line items that projects out 12 months? No, because he can't do it. And so it's kind of intuitive. We know that these are different skills, but yet we're so used to the simple idea that a contractor is one person. And when you look back historically, you know, the best things were built in the world, like all the way back to the Romans. You've got engineers who are architects who are builders, the master builder, the concept of the master builder. Well, the way we recreate the master builder today is with a team. You got to have a team. And so anybody who I think thinks they can deliver all of that in one person, it might be possible, but man, your bandwidth is going to get sucked up really quick. So I would encourage clients to always be thinking about the depth on the bench and the team that's supporting this project, not just one personality.
Yeah, no, I highly agree, because that's how I've been actually selling our company too now, is because we partnered with an interior design firm, a larger one, full on interior design. Plus, we have the architect. We don't
Yeah,
have an in house architect, but we have an architect that we work with, that everybody's kind of on the same page. And when you're dealing with 6,000 square foot, even 4,000 plus square foot houses, you know, to have that team of people working together just simplifies the whole entire process, and
yeah,
it's so
and that
important.
team is either going to be They're either going to be rowing the same direction, or they're not rowing. They're not on the team,
Mhm.
or they're rowing in a different direction. There's only a couple options. So, I mean, that's the thing is like, I think that some people would assume, well, if I don't have a design build team, like you're describing, that's okay.
Mhm.
Because, and what they don't realize is if you don't have them working as a team, they're actually working against each other and you just don't know it. And it's kind of a humbling thing to state that that could actually happen, but that's typical. And one of the other things I like to do with clients to help illustrate their need for these resources is I usually pull out our finish schedule. So after the drawings are done, I don't know if you guys have something similar to this. Drawings are done, permits ready. The average person thinks those plans are ready to build, and they don't realize there's still like 300 decisions left to be made.
Mm-hmm.
Paint color, baseboard profile, transition strip. How do you want to transition between your carpet and your hard? Do you want to use it? Do you want to tuck the carpet? Do you want to do a transition strip? You know, all that. Do you want a square rosette or a round rosette on that door hardware? Like, there's decisions upon decisions upon decisions that need to be made, and having like you and I know that they don't know that,
No.
but I show them the spreadsheet and say, this is like this is our homework for the next 3 months between you and our staff, and it just blows their mind. But then we break them down and we show them this is all you have to do next week, and it's one little piece. And so just trying to educate everybody and shock them with this is the elephant we have to eat, but don't worry, we have a plan and this is how it goes. And I always think about, what would a client do with a one-man band contractor in this scenario? Like, this is why marriages fail. This is why people stress out, because it's a freaking tunnel of work, you know? And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so I'm not putting anyone down for the way they run their business. I'm just realizing more and more that to do it well requires a lot. And I think the best way to get there is a team.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Well, especially in custom home building. I
yeah,
mean, it's just when you're custom. I mean, track homes. Okay, you could have your certain selections. That's it.
yeah, spine them
Three
out.
choices in tile. This is the trim you're getting. This is, you can use this paint color or whatever. But with custom home building, there's so much detail in it, and it's so in depth. And what you're kind of doing is, and I've talked about this on past episodes with a lot of people, no matter what the business is, setting the expectation. You know,
Right.
you're telling them with that spreadsheet and everything that you have, you're showing them, okay, you got your plans done, that's great, you know,
Okay.
but we
Right.
still we
Yeah.
still got a long way to go, so here's what you need to do,
Right.
and you can make these selections and so on. And I mean, we have certain areas where I'm at on Marco Island and so on. You know, you say where you're at's kind of that hidden gem. We're the same way, away from the East Coast, a little bit more quieter, but we have certain places where we pre-select a lot of the stuff too, but then throughout the process, obviously with custom homes, you know, that's hard for pre-selections because everything's constantly changing, especially when the walls are up. I just did an electrical walkthrough today, and you know, it took us 3 hours to
Yeah.
do it because there's so much detail to
And
those.
you guys just bang all the boxes and then walk? That's what we do.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
we have wires hanging and so on, and they've pre-ran some of the stuff, but then when there's movement or add an
Mhm.
outlet or add a can light there, a recess there, you know, it's just.
And I guess the reality is you and I, and this is where, you know, it makes good TV when the contractor walks the client out and says, look, we didn't see this coming. It's going to cost 20 grand and we can do it this way or we can do it this way. You know, that's good TV. But that's the stupidest contract we've ever seen. It's like, wait, you should have seen that coming a long way. And we all know you're going to change some of your electrical layout. We just know it. So that's why you schedule that walk at that right moment before there's rework involved.
Hmm.
And it's like, it actually isn't as complicated if you know the right order to do it in with the right resources, and you can facilitate a lot of change without a lot of headache. But if you get out of stride with that, if you get behind on it, if you don't see it coming, oh man, it'll kick your butt all the way to the finish.
Hmm.
And you know, and it's just interesting. I mean, the other dynamic that we wrestle with that you could probably is when you're talking client experiences, um, you know, we build for couples a lot, obviously, and sometimes there's some in-laws involved, or you know, different people, and inevitably, one of the people can visualize like crazy, and the other one cannot.
Yeah. Oh
You know, so one person you're talking to, oh, I got it, yep, that's what I want, and then the other person's kind of giving that nervous nod, like I have no idea what's going on right now. And so having the experience and the resources again to say, hey, we're going to require you to sign off on a drawing or a sketch or a something, even though one of the partners is saying, I don't need that. And you go, well, I'm going to protect your relationship by actually having something ready to go for you guys so that you're on the same page, because I know you're not.
yeah. Hmm.
And so you end up doing a little bit of what we call Dr. Phil, you know, sizing up their ability to communicate to each other, and then jumping in. And I think, like, who would have thought being a builder involves all of this.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's the recipe for success. Is it's a very multifaceted thing you got to pull off, which involves counseling couples, understanding personalities, all of this stuff. And I can't imagine, even my wife and me, we don't even build stuff on our own home without running it through the company now, because she knows that if I just go do it on my own without the team, I will create, what a, I'll create a perfect storm and she'll be in the middle
Yeah.
of it.
I was just doing that actually, the same thing with this new house. Like I said, I just bought and I'm doing the renovation. I actually called our decorator and I was like, "Hey,
Can you just
I
come
need your
over?
help. Yeah, hey, can you help me with this? What do you think about this?" And I'm the owner. I'm texting him. I'm like, "What do you think about this fan going in here and you doing this and this and that?"
Yeah,
And
yeah,
he's like, "Yeah, that looks good." That one, we were having full on conversation. So
right.
I know I see where you're coming from, because if I do it all, I mean, yeah, I got good taste and I'm learning too, but they really do pull everything together too. And I mean, that's what we've been kind of discussing this too. Obviously, you're in custom homes, and also, you do the design and build. So, do you have an in-house architect too? Do you have an interior designer in-house? You have 100 employees. How are
Yeah.
you doing all this stuff?
So what we do is under the main build entity, we do commercial and residential build. We have two divisions. So we
Okay.
have project management and supervision staff for each of those. So we split the roles. Supervision runs job site, quality control, and weekly schedule, 3-week window schedule. And each supervisor runs between 1 and 3 job sites, depending on the complexity, the proximity across our county. Each of those supervisors is paired with a PM, and they run the financial accountability of the job, all the contracting, subcontracting, vendor order, long-term planning, and financial accountability of the project. So that's the way we put our production staff is one is site is 80% site, 20% office. They come in for meetings and some coordination. The PMs are 80% office, 20% site. And they go
Okay.
out to the site for coordination, weekly meetings, etc. And what we've done there is try to, like I said, split the job role around the skill set so everybody's working in their strength. And then create a rhythm of the way they interact. And then what we also have inside of our build company, self-performing crews. So we have always had a desire to want to have integrity to what we do, where we actually do some of it. You can't do everything efficiently, but there's things we feel like are strengths. So we have 2 framing crews and 2 concrete crews. And then we also do a lot of, like, our carpentry side can do all the miscellaneous. So
Okay.
on all these customs, they're always end up cooking up some crazy idea that really doesn't translate to a subcontracted scope very well. And that's where our own in-house team really shines. Hey, this historic fence or this old siding off of the old barn, we want to use it on our headboard, or the fun stuff that makes the HGTV. Having the in-house team allows us to kind of have fun with that. So we feel like that's important. So 30 of the staff I name and 100 are craftsmen, tradesmen for us. And there's something really real about creating a track where a young person at 18, 19 can jump on our framing crew, learn a trade, be making $20, $25 an hour within a few years, have a track that they can run on. I feel like, you know, the late, I don't know how it is where you are, but the West Coast labor force, skilled labor, is non-existent.
Yeah.
We spent 30 years telling kids working with your hands was stupid, and then we wonder why none of them want to do it. And so I think redeeming that, what I call the skilled labor, the tradesmen, the craftsmen integrity, the craftsman tradition, and we really want to keep that alive. And so a significant portion is committed to that. And you know why people don't do it is because on some jobs we lose a lot of money for self-performing. It'd be easier not to, but it's also one of the reasons why we can expedite projects, speed them up, overcome challenges as we have those resources. So then what we do is we put that project coordinator is what we call them, and they really are an interior designer, but we ask them to go beyond interior design. We ask them, they're on the build side, they are responsible for the client relationship. So they'll have 3 clients at a time. They start working with that project before it even goes to permit, and they're representing us as a builder on our staff, building the relationship, collecting data, getting to know the wife, getting to know the husband, finding out what's really going on. And it kind of goes back to that mission statement of helping them express their dreams. Well, two-dimensional drawings are hard to do that with. So a relationship's better. You get to know their style, you get to know their vision. They don't even, a lot of clients don't even have the words to express what their dream is. So you got to pull it out of them, And so what they do is they go from conceptual design, like what we call the art, just architecture. And then they're going to break that down all the way into model numbers and SKUs. And so the other thing about having them on staff, an interior design / purchaser, is that they maintain all of our relationships. We buy all of our tile direct, our flooring direct, our window. So we try to cut out all the supply chain is a real challenge these days in the building industry. The box stores stock some stuff, very limited options, no reliability.
Yeah.
And then you go back to your suppliers and it's like long lead times and, different things. And so sometimes the person at the supply house selling you, they don't really understand the 5 distribution steps behind them. So we've taken upon ourselves anywhere we can to source direct from manufacturer, direct from distributor, and develop a relationship with them if we can. Because we know what we like, we know what we want, and the supply house may or may not agree with that. They may not even stock the part we want. So we'll go get all of our electrical fixtures, all of our plumbing fixtures, all of our flooring, all of our trim and casework and millworks direct from manufacturer. And that gives us control over the timing and the process, and we can actually guide clients into good decisions. It also turns around our ability to get pricing back quickly. We're not going through third parties for it. We have direct access. So that, we call it a project coordinator. They're really an interior designer, but we expect them to go all the way through selecting the SKU number and ordering. So it kind of requires them to get a little more granular than just design. And then, we have our back office team, in our account side and different things like that. The other entity, which is, so we originally started with the architecture and engineering and construction under one flag, but soon realized, and I don't know if this goes beyond California, that between insurance and licensing, you really can't hold all those under one entity. It gets very problematic. And so by splitting them into 2 entities, so they're the principal architect and principal structural engineer in our team, they're also partners in that entity, and their professional licenses anchor that business. And then me as the founder, I'm on board too as well. So we have a client could walk in and say, hey, I'm dreaming of building something, and they can start with us. We can do entitlement, we can help them with acquisition, we can help them with lending, all the way through handing them the keys. And I don't know any other entity around who's even tried to tackle that whole breadth of experience. But it sometimes it's a 2 to 3 year relationship by the time you've crossed all that. So, but yeah, they do get passed from company to company, and we try to make that as seamless as we can.
So are you subcontracting anything out, or is everything just pretty much in-house?
No, the only thing we do in-house completely is the framing. We do all carpentry, concrete, window and door through our sister company, Millworks.
Gotcha.
So what we try to subscribe to is that if we're going to do it in-house, we need to offer value that doing it with a third party can't offer.
Yeah.
And so like even with our framing, I think we frame 2 out of 3 homes. So we kind of aim for that 70 to 80% capacity so that our team is always at 100% capacity. And we're always involving a third party, even on the trades we do. That way we always have a backup plan. We always have redundancy. And we never try to avoid getting into a place where our own teams are the bottleneck.
Oh, yeah. Okay. And I mean, getting into that too, you having, over 100 employees on pace to have 300 employees. I mean, I saw on your website, obviously company values, core values are key too. I mean, and you have a certain set of those. How are you managing that many employees and keeping them within that core value? Because obviously you can't be everywhere, and your vision is your vision of this company. So how are you maintaining that?
Yeah, that is the ever changing, and that is probably the best question that I ask myself all the time is how are we staying true to what we're about? Because as we scale, like you said, I mean, there was a time, one of my first employees, his name's Alex, when we had 3 people, he was with me. And he loves every Christmas party when we get everybody together with their spouses, he loves to remind everybody of the time I took my finger off with a sawzall working. I was in the field and cursed the storm. And, cause now, the Christmas party, I'm wearing my tie, I'm up in front of a lot of people, and he always likes to remind everybody that he knows the real me. So there's a core of the group that goes back 10 years with me. And that group, we have so much rapport together, but more and more, and to make matters worse, not to complicate matters, I moved out of the area last fall. So the companies I've all described live primarily in one county, even though they do a little bit of work outside the county. And I live 500 miles away now, about 75% of the time, launching the prefabrication plant. So last August, I made that move, and I was like, how the heck is this going to work? I'm not going to be present. I'm not going to have a feel for what's going on. And it was the best exercise. I had about 6 months notice to go from being a guy who worked 70 hours a week, who had my finger on the pulse, had relationship with everybody. I kind of relied on my natural relational gifting to try to do it for a long time, which was a huge limit on the company. I didn't realize it. And only when I was forced with that decision to move out of the area to expand and commute back in, I come in about 1 week a month on average. That's when I had about 6 months notice to go, okay, and this is probably an exercise that every business owner should do. If I'm gone tomorrow, or let's say I'm out of the area, which Corona kind of forced this on people, right? This is so I was 9 months ahead in my own internal exercise of how would I make sure that clients are experiencing what they're experiencing, staff feels like family and is behaving like family and taking care of each other, and the accountability is there. And how would we go about creating that environment if I can't personally influence it at any serious level? So we set out to ask the harder questions, which is, how do you measure what matters? How do you dashboard the things that matter most? It's easy to look at your financials, but those are like trailing indicators. I want to know in our company, do our clients feel like family? And usually I would assess that through personal contact. Now I can't. So we started, and we're still in process of creating the feedback loops where we actually invite clients and staff into the process of providing that feedback loop. And then that feedback loop, and the hardest part is taking these qualitative ideas that matter so much and trying to measure them. I mean, it's a very abstract idea. How do you measure whether someone feels like family? And, you just have to start asking yourself, if I felt like family, how would I measure that? And you start saying, and so you start asking clients like, you start asking questions like, how secure do you feel that on a scale of 1 to 10, that all the challenges in front of you will be resolved by your team? So you never want to ask like performance questions. You're trying to get after the qualitative ones and start dashboarding. Do people feel secure? Start dashboarding. Do people feel covered? You start going internal with your team and saying, do I feel like I can be vulnerable about my mistakes with my coworker? And you start asking these questions and you start digging up things that maybe you would be able to pick up through osmosis. You can't anymore. So all that said is it's made us, we haven't not perfected this, but I believe we're stumbling onto questions that could really separate us and other people like us, that could allow us to move the construction industry forward. Mm-hmm. The traditional construction industry is, you work your butt off, you're not appreciated, you live out of a blue room, so you're, like, it's just a hard life. And we're going, I think we can flip the script on that. And if we can learn to flip the script on it at scale, where it's not Dan running around buying everybody Gatorades to feel better, but it's actually better than that, then we could create something really special and hopefully teach other people to do it too, and create an industry where people want to be a part of it, and create a transaction where people think building a home is one of the best things you can do, not one of the riskiest things you can do. And so, right down to like the way we financially transact, we make it like you're transacting with a real financial institution. We don't make it like, hey, why don't I have my money? We do everything very excellently as if we were a financial institution, so people feel secure. Mm-hmm. So all that said is, I don't have a straight answer for you other than we're asking better questions and we're learning to measure things that matter most, that are hard to measure, and we're getting better at it. And I'm also, to add on to that, is I invest heavily into my leadership on a personal level. And I'm really believing that, that's my main mechanism now as an owner, is that I just sow into my leadership and train them to do the same. And, that's not a perfect system, but I don't know any other way. So maybe you have the answer to the question, Bill.
I don't. I mean, to have that many employees too. I personally, I think you're doing it right. I mean, you're listening to them by doing the feedback thing and actually listening to what your customers and your employees are thinking. I mean, that's a huge step in general, anyway, because not a lot of contractors are actually doing that and
Right.
asking their employees, okay, what can I do better?
I,
They're more going towards this is how it's going to be. You see
right.
what I mean? This is my business. This is how I want to run it versus how can I make my employees experience this in a way that, they feel like they're a part of my family. They feel,
Right.
and have it go into work and have a conversation with your employees like they are family. And I mean, that's the way we're doing it. I don't have as many employees as you. Obviously, I'm not
Right.
even close, but in the future, I'd love to do that. But a lot of the people, all the people that work together with us, they feel like they're a
Yeah.
family.
Well, and so every time I show up every month, there's new hires. We have very low rollover. I mean, as soon as you get into
It's
this
huge.
business, you realize rollover is painful and it's expensive,
Yeah.
and that forces you to invest in people at a different level. I just had lunch right before this podcast with a guy who's been with us a year. He's low man on the totem pole, but I think he has a huge future. And so I try to sit down with him, every other
Right
month for a
there.
quick lunch when I'm in
Yeah.
town. And, I've tried to be Superman and do like 30 one-on-one meetings, once a month and stuff like that. And you can't, culture is the key.
Yeah.
And you've got to get other people building culture with you if you want it to be sustainable,
Mm-hmm.
and as much as you or I would love to say that we could do it ourselves, we just can't. If it's going to be a great workplace, it's got to be built by more than one person. And so I think that's the beautiful part too, is now you're inviting people in to build the company with you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people enjoy that privilege as long as it's not an empty promise. It's actually a pretty fun thing to invite them into and say, hey, we're growing. We don't have all these systems worked out. I need you to help build them. Um, but I have no desire. Maybe you're hearing from me. I don't really order anyone around. I feel like if I have to order them around, I failed. You know.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with you there too. And one of the key things you just said too is have them build the company with you too, because when you're putting that into perspective and making them feel like they're part of that culture, part of that vision that you have too. I mean, it's gonna boost them, the employees, more as well too. And I mean, you said you're big on leadership and leadership training too, and I mean I'm doing the same thing as far as is training yourself, investing in yourself too. I'm actually in a thing called the Arte Syndicate. I don't know what you're doing, but it's huge, and it really changes your perspective. It makes you want to listen to people. It makes you want to work with them and not boss them around. I don't want to boss people around. Who does? You know what I mean? And be
Yeah,
that.
if I sense that we're hiring an employee who's going to need that kind of a work environment and can't create their own um, boundaries within, because what we want to do is create, just like a kid, you're raising a kid, you want to create limits to protect them, but not to
Mhm.
limit them. I want them, their capacity and their track to be, but if they're only going to respond to forward movement by kicking the butt, they don't belong with our company, or
Mhm.
they don't belong with our company very long. And I think that's been probably one of the most humble things, is like having certain types of employees and realizing that where they're at in their life, on their journey, this isn't the right fit.
Mhm.
And having to humbly admit, like, the style of leadership and culture we create, it's not for everybody.
Yeah.
But I like to think that it empowers everybody, but you have to there has to be a certain level of alignment for it to work. And I think everybody who runs a business has got to like get their head around that at some level. It's very freeing then. You don't own everybody's problems all the time. You only own the ones you think that you can own, and you feel a little better about releasing people who need to go on and do something else, or not hiring them, or helping them move
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
So that's been a journey too. Because when I first started, I thought, oh, I've had so many rotten bosses. I'm going to be the best. Everybody's going to love working for me. And you're like, well, most, but not everybody.
Mm-hmm.
It's just what it is. So
Yeah, not everybody's meant to work with you or along with you or for you. So it is what it is on that thing. And getting into that kind of on a note, you brushed on this a little bit too. There's as far as labor, and I know in Florida too. I mean, the construction industry, there's not a lot of people that want to work outside, want to go through the hard work of you know hammering nails and being on a job site and
mm-hmm.
so on, especially in the younger demographic too. More of them are leaning towards computers and technology, as
Mm-hmm.
kids these days. Obviously, you're probably, I don't know how old your kids are, but they're all on iPads, they're all on, it's not so much like when I was growing up. I had to work. My dad made me work. I had to go to job sites. I had to sweep
Right.
them. I had to, even as a little kid. So how do you how are you getting these people, how are you getting the younger generation to work for you at 18 years old now? How are you, what are some things that you can do to do that?
It's probably been the hardest hiring group is that under 25 when they're
Mm-hmm.
just young in life. And yeah, they're not sure if, I mean, honestly, some guys 40 hours a week, like you meet them at 18 and that's just a daunting idea that they're going to work 8 hours a day. To me, that sounds like a freaking vacation, work 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I would say, the concept of total ownership, there were some books written on it by the Navy SEAL guy, Jocko, and different things
Jocko,
like
yeah.
that. And I think either in that book or others, they talk about how the SEAL teams actually self-select their teams. And so that's something we found is that if we build the culture tight in the right, by the right healthiest version of tight, I mean, where everybody's actually, what will happen is they will actually reject people on the team who don't fit. And this as long as it's done in a healthy way, it's really good, right?
Mm-hmm.
You join the framing team and the team looks at you and goes, hey, we have a high standard for the way that we work, either get on board or get out.
Yeah.
And as long as that's communicated well and in help and they're giving an onboarding opportunity, it's really good, like the self-selection process of our crews. Because then what happens, the flip side, if you really get it working right, is that framing crew goes, hey, I know a guy who would work well with us,
Yeah.
and they bring them in. So the majority of our tradesmen come in through our tradesmen. And obviously we pay competitively. We're not the highest pay. We give benefits. We don't do anything under the table at all. We don't do anything illegal. Everybody on our staff, we had to in California, this is a big deal because there's a lot of people cutting corners.
Mm-hmm.
We had to, me and my senior leadership had to say, there's so many common corners that are cut with legal, illegal type stuff. And as we grew, we had to draw harder and harder lines about what we could and couldn't do because the implications are bigger, and it's the subjective rules are harder to enforce the more you have decision makers out there and stuff like that. So we made a call that says everybody's legal, no compromise. I don't care if you have fake papers, we have to do the full e-verify process. And what that does is it sets, and that's not a judgment towards anyone other than, hey, we actually get in trouble if we,
Yeah. Yeah.
we got to hold our own line with that. And then everybody is on work comp properly. There's so many people out there clocking half their day on work comp. And then, there's so many shortcuts. We do the whole thing legit. And I could name 10 other things that we do legit and don't compromise on. And what we've done there is I've been able to look at every single one of my guys' wife at the Christmas party and summer barbecue and say, your family, if your husband, I don't tell him this, if your husband gets hurt on our job, he's taken care of. If your husband, we're creating an environment that you can spend decades in. And so it took probably the first 3 years to get a lot of guys who are used to getting cash and piecework to fully appreciate what we were doing. And now that the snowball's rolling, most of our trade recruitment comes through them. So we now have a lot of sons working with fathers. We're 10 years in. So we've got 18-year-old sons coming to work with their dad. And I think that is a privilege.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so excited about that potential. We have partnered with high school programs. There's all these work placement programs at a high school and junior college. We've partnered with them. There hasn't been huge success there. One of our companies recruits a lot of welding techs, and so they do have success getting that specific skill and cert out of some of these junior college placement things. But primarily, I will just come back to the culture attracts people, and that
Yeah.
is the cheapest way and best way to hire. So
Yeah, no, culture is huge. I mean, and you want, it's like you said, you want people to enjoy working for you, enjoy working in the environments that they are too. You want them to feel comfortable coming to work, plain and
yeah.
simple.
So when we put our marketing material together, like we're still getting better at it, but like our social media, we make sure that a lot of our social media is dedicated to bragging about our employees so that
Yeah.
all their sphere of influence sees them on this $3 million build, and that framer, maybe he's entry level, but he's got a shot at him building this beautiful thing, and he knows that his company is promoting him and giving him props. And I think there's just a lot of pride too that we don't withhold that the
Mm.
praise, from people publicly. So I think it is difficult when you look at a guy who comes in at 15 under $20 an hour, and he has the potential to work with you for 20 years. You're going like, well, what can I offer you?
Yeah.
That's a hard question too. How high can you take them, and how far can you take them?
Yeah, it's how far they want to go too. I mean, in the
Mm-hmm.
building industry, there is levels up too. I mean,
Right.
you keep climbing the ladder if you really want to. And we have a laborer now too. Is he the most driven person to climb the ladder? It depends on the
Yeah.
person too. And some of them he could have full opportunity to climb up and be a superintendent, and then
Yeah.
and manage sites as we expand and grow. It's just they also have to have the choice to do it as well.
I've got one guy who we had to fire, and then he came back 2 years later and asked for a second chance, and we gave it to him. We've done that a few times, and
Yeah.
it kind of just depends on everything, whether it works or it doesn't. But he came back and he's been a rock star, and he's been with us for 4 years now. And I sat with him the other day, and window installation guy, really good guy, and he's on a foreman track and all that. I said, "What changed?" And he's like, "I just had to grow up.
Yeah.
Had nothing to do with the work environment." I was like, I said, looking back, is there anything we could have done as far as setting the table for you that would have helped you cross that? And he's like, no. In fact, unfortunately, I think it was some tough circumstances he walked through personally that helped him, you know, and so I don't wish that upon anybody, but there is an element here of growing up that has to happen. So
Yeah, it's happened with all of us, I think.
yeah, very, very, very true.
Yes. I mean, you've also said too, building as an industry, the building industry is set on kind of a 100-year-old thinking.
Yeah.
Like explain this a little bit more too, because I'm interested about this.
Yeah, I mean, you could look at it through a nerdy study like I have about how much technology has touched the building industry. In the last few years, it's accelerated somewhat. I mean, you don't have, like, for instance, here's an example. Our city jurisdiction, who prides itself on being, fantastically progressive, just pre-corona, you would design your project in the most advanced new CAD software, Revit, whatever your flavor is. If it's an architecture studio, you do these beautiful drawings and concepts, and you develop them out, and you do, maybe or not, you incorporate different levels of smart design stuff into it as far as BIM and whatnot. And then you have to convert it to 2 dimensions, hit the print button, drive it down, and hand it to your city jurisdiction. They intake it, put it on a little cart, they data input it, then they print out a label, and what we do here locally a lot of is they then ship it over to the Central Valley about 2 hours away to a consultant who does their plan check. He then red marks the plans and puts them back in a FedEx and shoots them back. And that is how we do our front end process with government, is with snail mail.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that doesn't sound shocking until you compare it with anything else.
Oh yeah.
Compare it with anything else, and it kind of just shows you, like, wow, there's so much room for improvement. And then if you transfer and look at, like, the means and methods of construction, compare them to the way we built a house, let's say, best practices 80 years ago, 90 years ago. And you look at that and say, well, we mix concrete, we dig a footing. We have a better understanding today from like geotech engineering about soils bearing capacities and things, but it's not that different. You can do all the calculations you want in the world, and the footing is this size and that size. So you pour your concrete foundation, you throw a certain amount of steel in it, you put your embeds in, because we know about seismic now, so you got to have uplift resistance, and where you guys are, you have wind. And so, you frame with sticks. That's what we do out here mostly. You get lateral resistance. They used to use bracing. We do shear now. And, we use a pneumatic nail gun, maybe battery powered. They swung a hammer. Some of the guys that swing a hammer are faster than the nail gun guys, the old guys. So all I'm getting at is like, when you look at the means and methods of how we do supply chain, from the way we harvest a tree, from the way we supply goods, how they get to the job site, and then the means and methods we put them together, there just hasn't changed that much in 100 years. And that should be shocking to people, because most private industries get cheaper, faster, better, at higher quality over time. I mean, the TV you buy was $10,000 10 years ago. Now it's $500.
Yeah.
And so you see acceleration everywhere. And then you look at the building industry and go, holy bajoli, like it hasn't moved when you compare it to other industries. And all the pieces are finally, I believe, there, where it's just going to take the right effort from the right people to connect some dots. And we're going to see some major, major breakthrough. Even a company like mine, who tries to secure the supply chain with direct orders. Here's an example. My window supply company, which I think is top 3 in volume in our county. And we do vinyl, we do wood, we do aluminum, we do hybrid, we do wood clad, we do every window product there is out there. We understand them. We've been to the plants. We bring stuff in from Canada, from Wisconsin. We understand the product, everything that goes into it. And if I want to buy from a certain vendor who will remain unnamed, I can sit with my client and produce a really cool proposal. The way I get my quote, no joke, is you take our own inside template that we've built in Excel, we populate it, and we send it through like email. We email it to their fax. They think we're faxing them. It spits out of their fax machine. Someone rekeys it into some old DOS database from whatever their door machine's attached to something. And then we get back a fax about a week later with the pricing.
Mm-hmm.
And then if we like it, which we never do because there's errors everywhere, we would actually sign it, send it back in. Like, this is the supply chain for millworks. It's almost laughable, except that it's the reality. So what I'm getting at is, like, I don't think people realize that a good contractor is actually covering for all these shenanigans and making the client feel like he's having a seamless experience. Because what's behind us, supply chain, is just crazy.
Yeah. I mean, I had a guy on Dave Cooper, and he's doing more modular homes and stuff like that. Obviously, where I'm at, you can't do the modular builds because I mean, you guys are more stick built. Here, we're all cement block. So, you can't really. It's here. I mean, houses. I don't know about where you're at, but houses are taking us for something. Let's say 4,500 square feet. That can take up to 18 months to build.
Wow.
And just because there's so much work with the hurricane codes, all that, inspections, I mean, these things are constantly inspected too.
And you go, how many days do you lose to inspection on an 18-month build? I bet you lose 3 weeks total.
Yeah. And I mean, that's the thing, and getting all the trades there, because everything's a moving piece on the project too. You need one thing done before you go to the next. So it's just, I mean,
so the sequencing is the same. It hasn't gotten any better.
Yeah,
it's very linear.
And that's the thing. If you can innovate, I mean, and then also that's going back to what we kind of talked about too. The prices aren't going down; they just keep rising on stuff as well. Especially with the COVID stuff. Now my lumber guy's telling me lumber's going up because we can't get stuff from certain areas and so on. So these things are causing, it's tough. And I mean, that goes back to the affordability thing with certain people in your area and my area and other areas too, is how can they afford to live in a house? I mean, they're doing affordable complexes and condos and stuff like that, but
that's your labor force. So if the affordability hurts, Then
Yeah.
your labor
That's
is
the
more
thing. Yeah.
expensive and you're
Yeah.
stuck in a death spiral, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's kind of common sense. And so the only way you can take the wag out of any industry, and the housing industry being one, is get rid of the fraud. So
Yeah.
anything going on where someone's mismanaging resources, or make it more efficient.
Hmm.
Those are your only two mechanisms that you have. And so you and I are exploring, okay, get rid of the fraud. Well, for the part of the supply chain from material, labor to finished product that I control, I'll make that fraud free. Done.
Hmm.
Right. We won't be gouging. I'll make sure none of my vendors are gouging. We'll keep things tight. And then you look at efficiency and you say, you know, let's make this as efficient as you can. But when you're stuck in a traditional building model where foundation, inspection, pour, do the next one, that linear process, you can get efficient in some ways, a little bit
Yeah.
innovative. Hey, we're gonna pre-assemble this little piece over here and bring it in, or we're gonna get these guys in and then get these guys in working on the second floor, and we're gonna stack labor and try to be efficient about it. But you can only get so efficient when you're building on site with the supply chain, with the local jurisdiction. You can only accelerate it so fast before you start tripping over yourself. And you're also battling the local labor market to try to accelerate it too. Like try to find that electrician with one employee. Hey, I need you to go faster and hire more people. No, he's like, I do one speed, I do it one way. And so to me, that's led me to design build to try to make it better. That's led me to try to own more pieces of the supply chain and make it better. And then my next thing that I'm like, I think I have to go there is prefabrication. So this plant we're building in Northern California is saying, well, how else can you make it more efficient? And the only thing I can see of is if you aggregate all the labor into a plant, and you
Hmm.
aggregate all the purchasing power into a plant, then you can change the order of operations. And so what we do up there, when I say we do, we're planning to do because we're just building the plant, it's 250,000 square feet. And so every multifamily project which is our primary market, is we'll take the apartment complex or hotel or senior living, we slice it into sections, we call modules, and we can go up to 5 stories. Each section has a maximum of 16 feet wide, 75 feet long. We do shop drawings to reverse engineer that section of the building. Then we put that section on the line and we build it like an assembly line where it actually goes down where now instead of counting how many days you lost to the inspector, which is your normal way of counting how many times your electrician no-showed you, we're counting how many steps did the person on workstation 5 take today, and could we get those steps down?
Hmm.
And like we're actually counting steps in construction, not days lost. And because we're prefabricating it, and because we have an inspector in the plant all the time, that means we're allowed to do things out of order because he can inspect partial plumbing, he can inspect partial electrical.
Yeah.
So we can frame a wall, put it on end like a bookend, and then do all the electrical and plumbing in that wall, insulate it, and then it can all be inspected in real time and stacked up and have all the walls for an entire structure built ahead of time, plumbed, electrical, insulated. So we just fly them in with a crane, add to our assembly, and so our assembly can build just like a car would going down a line. It would be silly to call out an inspector to your garage to come look at your car build. You would
Hmm.
never do that. And so I don't know why we do that with construction. So to me, building this plant, which is costing me my life savings and some investor money, and I'm all in on it, and it's great. This is my contribution to the building industry about moving it forward.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's awesome, man. Because it needs to be innovated too, and that was a huge topic I wanted to talk to you about because I see what you're doing, and obviously it's not an easy process what you're doing too. I mean, where I'm at too, and I have the same mindset as you. If there's any way I can innovate, because I mean, like with hurricanes too, I mean, roof tiles through the roof right now. I mean,
Right.
no pun intended, but the pricing is insane on just roof tile because after Hurricane Irma a few years ago, all of a sudden they knew, okay, we can raise the price on that, and there's like 3, I think, major manufacturers in the state of Florida, and they're getting it. It's insane amount of how much roof tile's gone up within the last few years too, and that's just one example. And then windows and doors are going up because impact, we have to have impact
Right.
glass here or
Right.
shutters. that's a code here too. So
But
it's just,
everybody, I mean, people just assume you can click on Amazon and buy your building material, and they're realizing it actually just doesn't work that way at all. Like
yeah.
at all.
Yeah, no, I mean, I get people here, they're from up north and they're just shocked with pricing because they contact me all the time. Hey, can you build for this much a square foot? I say, absolutely not. I can't even do the shell,
Yeah.
so
Wow.
it's because it's the difference is all the stuff we have to do. It all has to be impact rated. It all has to
Yeah.
be engineered. It all has to, but that's the process too that takes the longest
So
time.
the reality is the government will continue to put further regulation on the building code in Florida and California.
Hmm.
We are the most advanced building
Oh
codes
yeah,
in the world. If
yeah,
people didn't know that already, we
yeah,
are.
yeah,
And I guess the good part, you and me, that's our normal,
yeah.
so if we can learn to swim in that. So if the regulation will always continue to add more elements, and our only two levers to pull, I believe, are efficiency and I'll say, and I hate to say it, it's an economic term, no fraud, which
Mhm.
means excellence in your bookkeeping, excellence in your,
Yeah.
it means, building a great business with integrity is one thing you can do to cut the price. The other thing you can do is innovate. And so I continue to look at the innovation piece and say, I don't think enough people have been pushing on the innovation button in the building industry. That is the future
No.
where we got to go. You know, why can't? And I mean, I always ask why can't. And I ask it to myself, and I go investigate. Why can't you put a metal roof on in Florida that's hurricane rated? I don't know the answer to that, but it's like somebody with some chops has got to ask hard questions to solve bigger problems, or we're like the tail getting wagged sometimes by these
Yeah.
problems. We're doing the best we can, but we don't control them. And so, for me, prefabricating plants where we can build 1 million square feet out of each plant per year at about 120 a foot, that number
That's
may or may
smart.
not sound exciting, but when we're shipping product at 1,000-mile radius, we're shipping to San Francisco. Their average cost to build on a multifamily is 350 to
Yeah.
400 a foot. And you're talking about affordable housing. Well, affordable housing with government money triggers prevailing wages, but not if you move it off site. If you move it off site, you don't have to deal with that, some of that labor regulation. You're building year round. It's not weather dependent. You're measuring steps on a worker. Now your construction technology worker in our plant has got an iPad in one hand and a nail gun in the other, and he has a really good coffee shop in the corner of the plant, and he doesn't have to live out of an outhouse. So I feel like you're reshaping the future of what the labor market wants to be a part of. They don't want to drive an hour to a job site,
Hmm.
and live out of an outhouse. Like that's just not for everybody. And so I think I just believe that there's a future there that we can help create that's exciting for people, and start solving some of our problems. And I think Corona woke everybody up. To me, we might need to think about some of this manufacturing stuff being done a little better, a little bigger locally.
I think it actually woke a lot of people up too. I mean, because like I said, the prices are just going up, and
Right.
while people are stuck at home and so on, Florida not so much anymore. We've been able to work and so on. I mean, we were shut down for a little bit, but you really start to think about different things like you are too, and obviously you're on that mission too with what you're building and to make it less expensive for the homeowner, which is so important too. I mean, one thing, and I know I want to get to the end here too, because I know you got to go too, but one thing I wanted to ask you too, I mean, because it's huge with all the competition, prices the way they are, how are you standing out from the other builders that are around you? Like, because there's a lot of people out there that just look at a number, and I've asked builders this in the past because I
Yeah.
face it every day. I get people, well,
Yeah.
can you build for this because this guy's building for that? And I try and explain to them, well, you get what you pay for. So huge. We're not the most expensive, but I mean, we're not the cheapest, but we're not the most expensive. We're kind of that one in the middle. So how are you
Yeah.
facing that?
I think there's two answers to the problem. And yeah, it starts with educating clients, and which
Mhm.
is your podcast is doing a great job of that. Is people, this is a huge investment of resources, of capital. Whether you're borrowing it from bank or whether it's cash, sometimes it's the biggest purchase people will make in their life.
Mhm.
They really should have more education on what they're getting involved in. I mean, you buy a home loan, you go in there and sign your life away. In California, it's like an inch thick of stuff you sign your life away on. And you could engage a contractor with one sheet of paper, which would be entirely foolish, but you could do it. And some contractors, I think, either out of habit or maybe out of maliciousness, like keep things dumbed down because then they can, kind of keep control of things. And so I say I preach a different message: radical transparency and complete ownership. So some people take radical transparency and say, I'm going to go time and material. That's the only way I build. It's transparent. It's fair. And I say to a client, do you want your builder motivated? And I don't know how you build, or what kind of contracts you use, Bill, so don't take this the wrong way if you're a time and materials guy. I said, do you want your builder motivated to go slower? He gets paid on the margin, right? Like, you want him motivated in your best interest, and your best interest is saving time and money and delivering the highest quality.
Yeah, we don't do those contracts, so
Okay.
don't worry.
Yeah, okay. And there are guys who I think they've defaulted to that because it is like, hey, if transparency is a value, hey, you can accomplish that through open book contract. Mm-hmm. But you sacrifice, where's the accountability to the process? Like, you're paying money for me to take the risk away from you, a homeowner, and bear the risk and bear the liability. But in the T&M, I just pass it all back to you financially. And so what we try to do is a little bit of education about, and we don't put anybody down. We just say, hey, this is our industry and this is our solution. And the other thing we do is, I don't hard bid any projects. I haven't done that in a long time. What I do is, people need to engage our firm during design phase, whether that's with our design firm or with another design firm. We will provide budgeting off the schematic design, and we will be on board to make sure that that design is in line with their expectations. There's nothing stupider than asking contractors to provide blind bids with no expectations of what the clients want, with a bunch of missing information on fixture and finish, and we're supposed to propose a hard number that they're going to compare to another hard number, and they have no way to really understand the differences in the scope and da-da-da-da. And so if someone invites me into that environment, I'm going to get 3 bids, and here's some really crappy drawings. What do you think? I just pass. And I'm thankful I'm at a point in my career where we can, because their expectations aren't on the table. So the reality is, I'm not going to meet them because they won't even disclose them. Mm-hmm. And so in every meeting, I always ask, what are you expecting to spend, and how did you arrive at that expectation? And if they say, we don't have a good expectation because we haven't done okay, great, let's start there. Let's get you some high level budgeting. Let's figure out, if this is a feasible project. But if they just want me to come in, and if they're operating as a client under the impression that contractors have a bunch of room, a bunch of money, and they need to beat up on me, then we're already not a good fit. I mean, I tell them straight up, look, our goal is to make 10% profit. Honestly, by the time we sign with you, it's going to be between 7 and 9%. By the time we finish, it's going to be between 5 and 7. If you can't live with that information, then we're probably not a good fit for you. And those are our true profit projections. We have our overhead money as well, but I don't usually get into that. So I go for transparency, and I go for showing them what we built with a team of what we're going to deliver. And then the other thing we do is we try to really invite clients. We do an open house every month on every project we finish. Most of our clients are happy to show their house off before they move in. We invite all of our potential clients to an open house. So we don't even take a cold call. If you want to deal with us, you can cold call us. We'll talk to you. But you got to come our way if you want us to come your way. Like I'm not going to tell my estimator to go throw 50 hours at an exercise for somebody I've never met. I won't do it. And so I think what we're looking for is relationships that are a good fit. And thankfully, after 10 years, we have enough of a reputation where there's more of those. To be frank, in the beginning, I did anything for anybody, and I worked my tail off.
Which most people do, yeah.
And I got screwed a few times, by clients that were not a good fit. And so now we have more of a filter. But I guess what we want to do is, back to your first question, is we're asking ourselves what's most important about that culture piece, and we want to stay true to that. And we want clients who identify with that. And so everything kind of revolves around that, and we're just getting better and better at it, all the time. So I would say to anybody out there is, I'm not afraid. I've lost money plenty of times and broken even to make good on my commitment. And I tell clients that, not with pride, but like, hey, this is who we are. We're going to make a commitment. And if we miss, we miss, and we'll deliver on that. And you're looking at a company that's tens of millions of dollars a year. So we can make good on it. Mm-hmm. Whereas your next guy, so I try to contrast a lot and let them choose. if I contrast us well and tell our story well, and they want to go with a one-man band after all that, then they probably should, you
Yeah.
know. And that's always hard to hear when you do get a no, but I think that's wisdom somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for everybody to get a no. I still am the same way too. I'm dealing with a guy right now. He wants to negotiate. He sent me his plans. He goes, let me know what you think about my plans. Can you go through them for me? But yet you're going to bid
Yeah,
for other builders, but I'm the one that's going to take the time to go through those plans and give my recommendations technically for those other builders. No, I
right,
mean,
right.
if you want to use us, you want to work with us, that's how it is. And he even gave me the spiel how his son's going to be building a house too. And then he's got a friend that's going to be
So he
building
dangled
a
the
house.
carrot. You're like, that's tough,
Yeah.
but then I asked myself, if I was that guy, how would I come towards you?
Hmm.
Like, so I guess what I've tried to do with my team is like, we need to tell people how to engage us properly.
Yeah.
Otherwise, blaming them for not doing it is difficult. So the way you engage us properly is um, you engage us early. We fly that flag. You engage us early, and we are happy to come in and give anybody a couple hours of our time. And then at that point, we're going to put you in a consulting agreement. Like, say you bring your own architect, that's fine. You're going to pay us $5,000 or $10,000 to help you along your design. And if you don't believe that we're a good asset up front, then we're definitely not your builder. So we try
Hmm.
to create little tripwires, little easy entry points. And we even tell them, and if you choose us as a builder, we'll credit all that consulting money right into the contract.
Hmm.
And if you don't, then we're paid fairly for our time to guide you through the process and give you tons of good cost feedback along the way. And if you don't believe that's a good value, then that's again another great indication that we're not a
That
good
we
fit.
shouldn't. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, we're the same way as far as that aspect too. It's just, some people you're meant to work with, some people that you aren't, and you can learn. The more you're in this business, the more you learn who you're dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when you're in front of somebody too. I like to get them in front of me because I don't know how many calls a week I get of, hey, what are you building a house for? Hey, I saw your
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
plan. I like this house. What can you build it for me at what cost? It's
Yeah.
all about costs. And if that's up front, it's just all strictly about a number, and it's probably not the best fit because there are a lot of
Yeah.
cheaper guys out there than we are too.
Yeah.
So
So one thing we do though is with that family concept, we say, hey, everybody can be part of this family. You might just be that weird uncle, but you're still allowed to be part of it. So pre-COVID, we threw an event every month with those open houses. We would do a lot of like open house style events. So it's like, hey, if you're just a looky-loo, you're welcome.
yeah,
You don't have to be fully convinced the first time you meet me, you want to work with us. We'll create ways for you to come around, and we can go on a few dates, and we can see whether this is going to work. We want to make it easy for people, but we also want to make it easy for people to leave who need
yeah.
to. And so I think that that's taken me years to figure out, and still, like I said, when you get a no and you think, oh, you don't. You
Why?
really, yeah. You really have to separate your ego from everything and just say what's best for you is best.
Yeah, yeah. No, I still like I said, I still cringe when I get a no, and you're just like, yeah, why? I wonder why. You just, but you don't want. Everybody wants. You're in business. You want everybody to go with you,
Right.
and the fact is they're not. And you're not going to work with everybody. Other builders, if I see other builders signs on jobs where I talk to the people, I cringed. I cringed.
So I think what we're doing as a team, and see, I got to a point where my ego was fine, but then I see my team members getting like bent out of shape about it because they're feeling the ownership. And so I'm
Yeah,
going,
yeah,
hey, we want to get no's for the right reasons, and we want to get
yeah.
yeses for the right reasons. And if we're doing that, then our pre-construction sales filter, whatever you want to call it, is working. And so we need to measure what matters, and what matters is, are we getting the no and yes for the right reason? Not are we getting the no or yes in the first place. So it's like asking better questions of yourself. Then it helps the heart palpitations come down, and also believing that we are adding good value and there are plenty of clients out there for us, which is proven to be true. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, Dan, this has been awesome, man. I want to keep moving here. I could probably talk construction with you for hours, to be honest with you. This podcast will last probably 4 hours, but I want to I always ask this because it's such a powerful question. I've been asking it on every one of my podcasts. It's more of a personal question. So obviously, you have built an amazing company and you continue to grow each and every day. So what lessons have you learned throughout your journey that, we should all apply to our own business or lives that can help us grow? That's a deep one. I
I
get a
think,
different answer every time too. So.
yeah, and I actually just had lunch with this guy. He's been with me a year and a half, electrical engineer, brilliant guy, young guy, and we made him an assistant supervisor. So we threw him in the deep end out there on the job sites. And we were having a similar question, a similar conversation. And because he's been in it for a year and a half. He goes, "Hey, you saw something in me, so you threw me in the deep end. What did you see in me? Where am I going?" Kind of asked. But same idea. I think the way I would phrase this, and I'm not the first person to say this, is that I just think starting every day, or say starting every day, but starting from a place of there are things I don't know that I could do better. And I think that posture opens you up to unlimited possibilities, unlimited growth. It's a humble one that invites feedback and it keeps you focused on the things that matter. And so I kind of always position myself with, I never take the position that I know enough, that I know better. And it really, and by always starting with like asking the question, what do I not know? And what could I do better? It's not a critique of myself so much as a focusing question of where am I growing and how is that helping everybody else? And so, going from zero revenue dollars to $500,000 to $1 million to this year breaking 30 million, pushing to 40. And if we get this endeavor up north, it's hundreds of millions of dollars in gross sales. Always staying focused on growth in a humble way, whether that's growth in numbers or growth in your leadership or growth, but just always examining how you're growing. What do you need to do to position yourself for growth? That has allowed me to really enjoy the process and also not ever get spun out when we have success, because you're not measuring the success, you're measuring the growth. So that's my big thing, is just always coming at it from that angle. And then it's the dollars are just numbers on paper. You can become detached from them. You'll never be that contractor who rolls up with a new boat when he signs a new contract. You'll never fall into that. So and hopefully you'll affect a lot of lives along the way.
I love that. Wow. Yeah, that was awesome, man. That was a great answer right there too. It's true. If you focus on growth in all aspects, especially with your business too, and not, I mean, obviously you're going to have your goals on your numbers and you continue to grow too, but that one right there, if you don't focus on the growth and every position of the company, not just the numbers, but the employees and so on, and you going into having the values and having the systems with those employees to help you grow. I mean, that's the main thing right there. So love that answer, man. Love it. So, I always ask this one too. Obviously I asked about your past. I want to hear about your future. So where will you be? Where will we see Dan in the next 5, 10, 15 years? Will you be innovating the construction industry, changing the game? Where will you be?
I love the meme that said everybody who asked the 5-year question in 2015 got it wrong.
Yeah.
No one saw this coming, right?
Yeah, with this, yeah.
Yeah. So, our goal is to have this plant operational in 2021. We're about to break ground on it. We've been through entitlement, acquisition, fundraising, all that. We're finishing some of that right now. So if we spin this plant up properly, we'll be producing 1 million square feet of housing a year out of Northern California to serve the West Coast. I expect to build 3 or 4 more plants. I don't think we'll get them done in 5 years. I think maybe we'll be on to plant number 2, maybe Texas, maybe we've looked at locations in Wyoming, just looking at like 1,000-mile shipping radius, good locations for that. So I think there's another plant in me. I'm working on some disaster relief housing. So we've got some intellectual property we've designed using SIPS panels, where we're starting to build a process around that where basically we can flat box a house and it can ship anywhere in the world. We can ship 5,000 at a time. NGOs, the disaster relief, when the tents fall down, our product can come in. and we've got toolless assembly in one day, off-grid solutions, on-grid solutions. But the displacement of people groups on a worldwide stage is the biggest humanitarian crisis. It has been for decades and decades and decades. And the housing of those displaced peoples and the resettlement has not been addressed well. And the more I learn about it, the more I realize, like, I think there's a lot of progress we can make here. So we're prototyping in California. I don't know where that will be manufactured at scale, maybe out of California for the short term, maybe other places. So, I think that merging manufacturing practices with construction is going to open up a lot of doors for a lot of solutions. And I believe that's where the majority of I see my time focused in the next 5 years. So international ideas, as well as domestic product we're building. My design engineering firm, we're launching an accessory dwelling unit line that'll be manufactured out of SIPS panels, shipped for under 6 figures anywhere in California. So anyone can go online, buy one of our accessory dwelling units. You can put it on a foundation. We have a proprietary raised foundation design that can be gone in pretty simply. So we're hoping to release those products next year. I mean, imagine if you could actually go online, customize a house, hit click, receive it in 4 months, and customize it as you like. Obviously we'll start with simple solutions, and financing is available because these products, we already know what they appraise at. So setting up the fund to do the financing, $20,000 down, here it comes, and we'll do the lending side too. It's like housing shouldn't be such a freaking mystery.
Yeah.
You're in a bidding war. You got to get pre-qualified. You got to get your loan. There's so many freaking moving parts for the average consumer to experience housing. It just shouldn't be that hard. So I think that's where I don't want to say my life work is going to go, but that's where I'm focused in the next 5 years.
Yeah, so it'll almost be like buying a car, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, you go in to buy a car, the loan process is 10 times easier than when you're going through the loan process of getting a mortgage or getting a jumbo loan on a lot.
And that's a depreciating asset. A home is an appreciating asset. It's with way more security. It just shouldn't be that hard. So.
And ever since obviously the mortgage crisis and so on, it's gotten even harder, which that should be, but I mean, it's just the processes you go through and the time spans of 60 days is, it's like a 60-day closing period on a loan now. And especially with COVID, now there's more restrictions. No, what you're thinking and what you're doing or going to do is going to be huge, because if I can build a house online, like you can build a car online.
Yep.
Why not? And click buy and get it financed and get approved.
And there's plenty of reasons why not. There's architectural reasons, there's planning reasons, there's structural reasons, there's jurisdictional reasons. We know this, but I think that you and I are talking because we feel like, hey, we've spent a career in this. Maybe we can actually find solutions in here. So
yeah. And there is solutions. It's just finding them and then getting around the government to,
that's it.
Who's restricting those solutions too because of certain reasons. So, but we can go on about that forever too. And last but not least, this is what the show's all about. What exactly do people need to look for when building a new home or a commercial project, and why should they choose Dan as their builder of choice?
Oh gosh, I think I would just hold us up to the same litmus test as, are these people you want to work with? I think people need to ask the downside risk questions of, do they have the chops, the expertise, and do they have the resources to do this well, and the experience? And then once you pass that litmus test, you got to ask the question, what are you adding? What are you bringing to the table that someone else isn't? And you got to be able to answer that question. So everybody should ask that. Should be an open and honest conversation with any builder you're considering is, convince me you're not a risk financially, logistically, professionally, and then tell me why you're wonderful. And, with us, I'd say you're hiring a family that's committed to extending that family. And we're committed to radical transparency, and we're committed to innovation and adding value. And we've got quite a few ways we choose that. But, if you heard it from me, and I try to say this in this way, is everybody on my team has to check their ego at the door. We can't fuel the fire of stupid contractor mentality. We've got to these are client solutions we're building. They're all about the client. So Yeah, hire a team you want to work with that you believe in. And if they can't convince you of that, then don't do it.
It's yeah, I love it. Dan, this has been awesome, man. I really appreciate your time today and you coming on. Last thing real quick, just so people know, where can they find and connect with you?
Our websites for all the companies listed. We're actually launching a parent company right now, which will be easier. It's not up yet, but the easiest one, you can FerreiraInc.com, FerreiraInc.com. There's 5 other companies I can list off I own, but that one you're probably going to be able to get in contact with me the easiest. And let's see, there's definitely some Instagram presence on all of our companies. So I think I'm Dan Ferreira 805 on Instagram.
Nice. Yeah, Dan, this has been awesome. So much. I love the angle that we went with on this one too, because it's been different than all the other builders and talking innovation with you and so on. And like I said, obviously we can go on for hours about this, but I know you got to get back to work too.
Mm-hmm.
It's not getting to be dark where I'm at now, so we're a little bit time difference. But no, I appreciate you coming on, and thank you everybody for listening. And I will see you guys on the next episode. Cool.